Good, everybody? It's a sunny day in LA. Walk with me and talk with me as we take this journey together in this thing called life. But before we start, I would like everyone to like, share, and subscribe to my video. But let me let y'all take a look at me right quick. Hey everybody, what's good? So, before I begin this video, I just want to talk about this. I'll take a few minutes to get right to it. Times are rough and hard out here, man. Times are rough and hard. The economy is tough right now. The job market isn't that good. And so what a lot of people, including myself, are having to scrape by to make ends meet. You know, a lot of people are working unstable jobs, or they're not getting enough hours to make ends meet, and it's very difficult, especially when you don't have any family support or friend support network, and you fall on hard times. Is very, very difficult to navigate that. And I can speak from personal experience. Me and my family have been struggling for the past 4 or 5 years. Working jobs that you're always one paycheck away from homelessness. Having jobs, moving into new apartments or new locations that are cheaper. And then what'll happen is you'll move there, you'll start the job, but then the job lets you go. And you moved into this nice, cool community, and you want to stay there, but you're trying to find work, but you can't find work that will enable you to stay there. So you end up in a situation where you get behind on your rent, and now that place is trying to get you out of there. You and your family, they're trying to evict you. They start the eviction process. And so now you're back out on the street with no family support, no job, no nothing. So you're forced to beg. You're forced to try to create GoFundMe pages. But on your GoFundMe pages, nobody wants to support you. Or on your GoFundMe pages, everybody thinks that you're trying to scam them or you're lying. It's almost like individuals have to really see you in that bad situation. Let's say individuals have to see you and your family out on the street in a tent, or out on the street sleeping under the bridge, before individuals may have the heart to help. Instead of helping these individuals prevent that situation. Because once you get in a situation of homelessness, it's very hard to get out of that situation. Very hard. Almost impossible. But, you know, individuals don't want to help until it's too late. Excuse me, y'all. Still coming down from this this flu, whatever it was. But individuals don't want to help until it's too late. And that's the situation for me, but that's the situation for a lot of people. And they want to say, well, why don't you get a job? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? It's easier said than done. See, what they don't talk about is this. All those individuals that's telling you to get a job, and you should get a job. And when times get rough, you should not be so picky about the job that you want to take because it's a survival job. But even when you do land your survival job, that's not going to immediately solve the situation. It ain't like you're going to go into that new employer and say, hey, I know I just started today, or I know I just started this week, but I'm very behind on bills and I'm facing eviction. And I was wondering if you guys could basically front me the money for, let's say, my next 3 weeks of pay. If I'm going to be working 40 hours a week, if you guys can front me the money for the next 3 weeks of pay, you know what that employer probably going to say? No, we're sorry. And they might more than likely get rid of you. Because why? You're working a survival job and you're easily replaceable. You are easily replaceable. But these people that tell you to get a job, they don't understand that situation. So more than likely what most people need when they get in that very hard situation is they need some time. They need time. They need something or someone that's willing to let them get back on their feet. So, for example, let's say there's someone that say, hey, you and your family can have this room or have this extra space right here, and we'll give you 6 months. Don't worry about the rent. Obviously, if you can, just provide your own food, and that individual probably can provide their own food because they can get on, SNAP and things like that. But just for 6 months, and try to keep the utility bills down. Try to be considerate. But for 6 months, let y'all see how beautiful it is. For 6 months, you guys just save your money, stack your money. And after those 6 months, depending on where you are, maybe then we could talk about rent and stuff like that. But we'll give you 6 months. And what would that do for that individual? It would give that individual enough time to get on their feet and save some money. Maybe within that 6 months time frame of not having to worry about rent, the person can work work their hours, maybe even ask for overtime or take up a second job. And within that 6 month time, that individual should have been able to save a substantial amount of money to really do something. Let's say they save $20,000 or $25,000. And with that $20,000 or $25,000, that individual should be able to really make some moves. Maybe that individual may decide, hey, for example, if they're living in Los Angeles, hey, this area is a little bit too expensive. How about we look for a cheaper state, a cheaper area? And they may decide they have enough money to make the move. They have enough money for the deposit, and they have enough money for some cushion to when they get there, the person can, okay, I got some cushion. I can try to find a job, and bam, that's the way that will help this individual finally get out of this situation. But if the person doesn't have that, then it's going to be a continual cycle. They're never going to get out of that situation. If the person finds a place to stay and they say, okay, pay us rent immediately. Pay us rent immediately. We don't care how you get it, but pay us the rent immediately. Well, what's going to happen? If that person lose their job, they're going to be right back in that same situation. It's going to be a continuous, vicious cycle. This is why even people that have white collar jobs, that get laid off from an employer, those individuals, let's say they have an apartment, they have a car note, they have all that, right? Those individuals will say, hey, let me go back and stay with my parents or a family member if it's possible. Why? Because they know if they try to stay in that place, and even if they're receiving unemployment insurance, the weekly max amount in California, the last time I checked, that you can get weekly, it doesn't matter what job that you worked at, the weekly max amount that you can get is $450 per week. So if this individual has a rent, because more than likely if they had a good, white collar job, if they have a rent expense that is, let's say, $2,500 to $3,000 a month. Well, that unemployment insurance is not going to cover that rent, or even if it does, they'll be left with nothing. They won't be able to pay their utility bills. They won't be able to pay their car note. They won't be able to pay for their food. So what that individual would do, they say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to put in my 30-day, 2-week notice, whatever, and just move out and go move with my parent, because that will give me some time to find another career, find another position, and save some money and do it again. Even let's say, even if that individual did have the ability to save up an emergency fund, they might still choose to do that, because if they have an emergency fund, they want to keep it strictly for an emergency, like a real emergency. If they have the option to go live with their parent, why would they want to touch that emergency fund? Because it's supposed to be used for a situation where, let's say, you don't have that parent and you really need it. So they will still go and stay with their parent to preserve that. But if the individual don't have that, it's rough. It's rough, and this is the situation that I find myself in for the past 4 or 5 years, because I had a plan. Hold on, let this truck go by. I had a plan. My plan was to when I found out that the woman I was involved with was expecting, we were in a particular situation. And I'll give you guys a little context without being too personal, because you know what? This is a cold world. People on YouTube or social media try to use that against you to talk mess about you. But we were in a particular situation. She was expecting, but she wasn't here. I was here. She was in a whole nother geography. Let's just say that. Outside of this geography we call the US. And we had to make a decision with each other. Do you want to stay in that geography and go to completion to the term and deliver, or do you want to come to this geography where I'm at and deliver the term? And the decision was based off of, we think it would be better to do it here, because this is the great United States of America, and we want certain opportunities for that new life. It turned out to be 2 for 1, if you guys know what I mean. But we wanted to do that, and it wasn't irrational. I wasn't. Let's say, listen. Let's break it down. I wasn't broke, right? I had the opportunity to save up a lot of money, because I was working a lot of hours. I was putting in a lot of work, and I saved up a nice cushion fund. Now I was doing that for what I wanted. I had plans what I was trying to do with that money. So when this happened, because it happened, it wasn't entirely planned, but when it happened, I said, well, listen, I got some money set aside. That's what I was telling myself. I had already secured a place in Atlanta that I was already planning to go to. So it kind of like the timing kind of worked out. And so I'm like, listen, come here and we'll make it work, because I got some savings. I already got a place lined up in Atlanta, so it should be a smooth transition. And then once you get here, we can work. We can, some months down at the delivery, we can work on it. We can start the process, put in for your paperwork. And then I had a career that I thought with the government lined up that I was in the process of trying to get. Well, all that fell through. And, doctor's appointments and traveling and all that is not necessarily cheap. So basically what happened is the money dried up, and it dried up fast. And that put us in a situation where, well, by that time we had already started the process. So my fallback for the whole situation, and I thought it was going to go through, because I submitted all the required documents. I had all the proof. I had everything. I had everything right. I even had a lawyer sit. I even had a consultation with a lawyer who he sat down and looked at the paperwork and looked at everything, and he said, yeah, everything looks good to go. So the backup plan was, okay, well, the situation didn't, the whole career path and the whole situation didn't work here in the US. We can just go and we can go to a whole, we can go to your spot and we could be okay because the cost of living, and then you got family support, it will work out. It would be good. It won't be, it'll be good because even if I had to find work there, we don't have to worry about nothing because we can stay with your family. They won't require rent of us. It'll work. But it was all dependent on the process going through. It was all dependent on the process going through, right? Well, they had a backlog. They had a backlog of so many applicants that were applying that the process took. It went to 6 months, to a year, to now almost a year and a half, and they were still dragging until finally, and in between this time, my money had dried up. The job market wasn't that good. I was looking for work. I was doing a little odd stuff here, gig economy, but it wasn't really doing much. So we were just scraping by, waiting for that process to go through. And when a year had passed, and I'm like, man, let me just call these people. Let me just call them and see what's going on. Why is this taking so long? So I called them, and this government agency, they basically communicate through mail, strictly through mail. They communicate through mail. So if you miss a letter, if you miss some direction that they're telling you to do, and let's say it's not even your fault. Let's say your letter got lost in the mail. Let's say somebody else misplaced your letter, or it went to the wrong address. Whatever the case, because that can happen. It is still your fault when you don't get the mail, according to them. Even though it wasn't your situation, it wasn't something that you caused. It wasn't like you got the mail and you just ignored it. So when you don't get that mail that they sent to you in a particular time period, when they're asking you, usually when they send you the mail, they're asking you, hey, can you finish this? Can you do this? If you don't do that or get that done within that time period, that time frame that they give you, then your case is over. So when I called them and I said, hey, yeah, we're just trying to check on the status of this. They said, oh, you didn't get the letter? No, I didn't get no, what letter? Well, we sent you a letter 4 months ago, and it was asking you to do A, B, and C. Well, unfortunately, since you didn't do A, B, and C by the time that we told you to do it, your case has basically been denied. And we like, oh, now, bam. This is bad. This is very bad. Because now, not only did the case get denied, now we have these children who are American. I don't have no careers lined up, even though I got my bachelor's degree and I got all the degrees in the education. I'm having a tough time finding a good career, a good job, even though I'm putting in the effort and I'm trying. And we are tight on money. We're literally about to be evicted, or no, at that period of time, being in Atlanta and in the area we was at, which was Buckhead, you might say, well, how'd you live in Buckhead? I didn't know, man. I'm from California. When I see a rent for a 2-bedroom, which is what we needed, with 2 bathrooms and a dryer and all that, washer and dryer, I'm comparing that to California prices. I'm seeing this is only going for $1,800. Okay, in California, something like that will be going for $4,000 or $5,000. So that's how I'm viewing it. So I'm thinking I got a good deal, not knowing that, well, yeah, but the local minimum wage is only $8 an hour or $5 an hour. So, you know, but not to drag this, let me let y'all see. Not to keep dragging this video on longer, but long story short, when I made that decision to go to Atlanta, I had kind of a good career lined up with the government. So that's why I was in the process, and I was thinking, oh, good. Once this falls through, we'll be straight. You know, if I'm working for the government, I got good health benefits and all this stuff, and I'm making 60, 70K starting, we'll be in a good situation. But that fell through. So when they gave us that information, a year had already passed. A year had already passed, and now we had to make some decisions. Well, the decision is this. If you go, then automatically it's going to be a 3-year ban, depending on the time that you go. Or it could be a 10-year ban, 10 years of you not being able to come back here. So it was like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? This is a very difficult situation, because now we're talking about potentially splitting a family up for indefinitely. But I'm gonna leave it right there. And just say this, man. Times are difficult out here. You never know what a person is going through when they asking for help. You can't always think it's a scam. And it shouldn't take someone to have to show you this. What proof? What proof do you want? Do you want a proof of them saying, hey, come meet us under this freeway where we're currently living, so you guys can see that it's not a joke? Like, that's crazy. Why not help them prevent that? Right? Why not help them from even getting to that point? You dig? But that's all I got to say for this one. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. I'll holler at y'all later. I'm out.